All right, let's dive right in. Today we are tackling one of the biggest, most profound questions in all of science. What exactly is consciousness? We're going to be exploring a truly mind-bending theory from Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, a theory that suggests the answer isn't just locked away in our brains, but might be written into the very fabric of the universe itself.
You know, it's a funny thing, right? Consciousness is the single most familiar thing in our lives, and yet it's the most mysterious. It's simply the feeling of being you.
It's that constant movie playing in your head, your subjective experience of the world. But for all our incredible scientific progress, we still can't really explain how 3 pounds of gray matter inside our skulls can create such a rich, colorful, and meaningful inner life.
Now, the conventional story tells us it's all just about complex calculations happening between our neurons. But there's this fascinating and pretty controversial theory that argues if we want the real answer, we need to look way deeper, beyond the biology we thought we knew.
And this is the wild idea we're going to unpack today. The theory that our own minds are directly connected to the fundamental workings of reality itself. Okay, so before we get into the really wild stuff, let's set the stage a bit. What's the puzzle this theory is trying to solve? I mean, why do we even need a new theory for consciousness in the first place?
Well, it starts with what's known as the hard problem. It's pretty easy to imagine a biological robot, a zombie, that could walk and talk and process information just like us, but inside, there's nothing. The lights are on, but nobody's home. So the hard problem is this: why do we feel anything at all? Why aren't we all just zombies?
And the hard problem isn't the only mystery on the table. The standard brain as a computer model also has a tough time explaining a few other things, like how does your brain take all the different sights, sounds, and smells and bind them all together into one unified experience? Or this idea from Roger Penrose that true human understanding is non-computable. It's something an algorithm can never really replicate. And maybe the weirdest of all, how can single-celled organisms, things with no brain at all, show signs of intelligent behavior? How is that even possible?
Okay, so let's dig into that conventional story for a second. The idea that the neurons in our brain are basically just simple on-off switches, kind of like the transistors in a computer.
For decades, this has been the textbook picture. A neuron gets some input signals, it adds them up, and once it hits a certain level, it fires. Simple, predictable, computational.
But here's the thing. When you actually measure neurons firing in a conscious brain, the reality is, well, it's a lot messier. That clean, predictable line for when it's supposed to fire, it's actually all over the place. This suggests there's some kind of unknown X factor in the mix, something influencing the neuron's decision.
So, where could this mysterious X factor be hiding? Well, to find it, our story takes a really interesting turn. We're going to stop looking at the connections between the neurons and go deep inside the neuron itself. And believe it or not, this idea has been around for a while. The great neuroscientist Charles Sherrington, thinking about how smart those little single-celled creatures could be, had this incredible foresight. He suspected the answer wasn't in nerves, but in the cell's internal scaffolding, the cytoskeleton.
And the key parts of that cytoskeleton are these little things, microtubulin. They're these tiny hollow cylinders made of a protein called tubulin, and they form this huge complex network inside every single one of our neurons. And here's where it gets really wild. Each one of those little tubulin proteins can flip between different states, almost like a tiny computer bit. And when you calculate how many of them are packed into the microtubules of a single neuron, the potential processing power just skyrockets. We're talking 10 to the 16 operations per second. That's not in the whole brain, that's in one neuron. It's an absolutely mind-boggling level of complexity. So all of that immense processing power opens the door to a truly radical idea, that the X factor we've been looking for isn't classical at all. To find it, we have to leave the world of normal biology and enter the strange, counterintuitive world of quantum mechanics. Okay, so at the quantum level, reality gets a little fuzzy. A tiny particle isn't just here or there. It can exist in what's called a superposition, a kind of haze of multiple possibilities all at the same time. It's only when we measure it that it snaps into one single, definite state. Now, this is where Sir Roger Penrose comes in with a revolutionary idea. He says this isn't just some abstract math. He argues that when a particle is in two places at once, it creates a tiny, real split, a bifurcation, in the actual geometry of the universe. It's like two parallel space-time realities coexisting for a moment.
But these parallel realities can't last. Penrose argues that this separation in space-time is unstable, and it spontaneously collapses back down into one single reality. He calls this objective reduction, or OR. It's a physical process that's built into the universe itself.
And this is where it all comes together. This cosmic process of objective reduction gets connected back to those microtubules inside our brain cells. And that forms the core of the orchestrated objective reduction theory, or for short, ORC-OR.
So the theory goes like this. Quantum computations build up inside the microtubules, creating a bigger and bigger superposition, a bigger split in spacetime. Once that separation hits a critical point, bam, it triggers Penrose's objective reduction. And in that instantaneous moment of collapse, a single, discrete moment of conscious experience is created.
This theory might even explain brainwaves, like the 40 Hz gamma rhythm that we see with consciousness. You can think of it like two guitar strings that are just slightly out of tune. They create that slower, pulsating wah-wah-wah sound. That's a beat frequency. The theory suggests brainwaves are just like that, a slower beat that emerges from the interference of much, much faster quantum vibrations happening down in the microtubules. It's the rhythm of consciousness coming from a deeper quantum hum.
So, why does all this matter? What's the big takeaway here? Well, let's zoom out and think about the truly profound implications of this theory, not just for our brains, but for our place in the entire cosmos.
You know, we're usually given two choices. There's materialism, where consciousness is just a fancy trick of a biological computer, or there's dualism, where it's some kind of non-physical spiritual thing that's beyond science. But ORC-OR gives us this radical third option. It suggests that consciousness isn't created by the brain at all. Instead, it suggests that consciousness is a fundamental feature of the universe, and our brains simply evolved into complex quantum devices that can access and orchestrate it.
Now, the ORC-OR theory is definitely still being debated and tested, but it leaves us with this absolutely staggering question. Is that movie playing in your head just the product of neurons firing? Or is it a genuine glimpse into a fundamental property of the cosmos? It challenges us to wonder if our inner world isn't just in our heads, but is a resonant piece of the universe itself, looking back and becoming aware.